Thank you for coming to my session. My name is Yuko Koike. The title of my presentation is Teaching English Lexical Categories to Japanese Students. Lexical categories such as nouns, verbs, and adjectives are fundamental for learning the grammar of the language. In this presentation, I will discuss grammar and grammar learning in second language acquisition, instruction for second language learners, what's a lexical category, how should we teach lexical categories to Japanese students. It's claimed that grammar is important for language learning and development. Various linguistic areas are connected to each other through grammar. However, in many cases, grammar instruction is not always emphasized in teaching English as a second language. Grammar is defined as a system of lexical-grammatical patterns used to make meaning in appropriate ways. Larson Freeman proposed a three-dimensional grammar framework: form, meaning, and use. All the three dimensions need to be mastered by the learner, and this can create a challenge for learning. The learner needs to associate the form and meaning of the target construction within the appropriate context. The grammar that L2 learners acquire in a second language is not the same as the grammar of a native speaker. L2 learners already possess an L1 grammar, so they additionally acquired L2 grammar in different ways through teaching, social encounters, and so on. The learner's first language influences L2 learning in various ways. Some L1, L2 differences are difficult to learn, but may be relatively easy to learn due to their saliency. Some L1, L2 similarities may obscure what needs to be learned, but it's suggested that L2 learning may be difficult where subtle distinctions are required between the L1 and L2. There is interaction among the L1 cognitive processes and the L2. Children's language learning and adult language learning are quite different. It claims that natural L2 learning may be suitable for children, but formal classroom learning, which requires sophisticated understanding and reasoning, is more suitable for older learners. Also, positive evidence that is natural input is not always sufficient for L2 learners to analyze complex grammatical structure. Therefore, L2 learners need the negative evidence, that is error correction, getting from instruction, in order to understand L1, L2 differences. Then how should we teach grammar? Recent research has shown the effectiveness of explicit instruction. It claims that attention and awareness play an important role in L2 acquisition. And explicit instruction raises attention and awareness and enhances learning efficiently in L2 classroom. It's also argued that L2 learners, particularly older ones, might benefit from explicit instruction of grammatical rules and patterns. Learners' consciousness can be raised by inducing a grammatical generalization from the data they are given. Languages have syntactic categories of parts of speech, and syntactic categories can be divided into lexical categories and non-lexical categories. Lexical categories play an important role in sentence formation. This classification reflects a variety of factors, including the types of meaning that words express, the types of affixes that words take, and the types of structures in which they can occur. In other words, lexical categories have semantic properties, morphological properties, and syntactic properties. There are some similarities in lexical properties between learners' first language and second languages, which help them learn lexical categories. However, there is also cross-linguistic variation, and the learner's learning tasks are complicated by the language-specific properties. The present study focuses on major lexical categories, nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, and examine how the categories could be taught to Japanese students effectively. These are the examples of errors Japanese students often make. It looks like words with multiple categories cause students to make such an error. Then how could we teach these lexical categories to the students? As I mentioned earlier, the classification of lexical categories reflects a variety of factors, and lexical categories have semantic, morphological, and syntactic properties. Therefore, English lexical categories can be distinguished from each other based on these properties. Let's observe each property. As semantic properties, noun denotes entities, verb denotes actions, sensations, and states, and adjective denotes state, and adverb denotes manner in which something is done. However, these semantic properties are kind of subjective and not always reliable. On the other hand, the morphological properties show that each lexical category takes category-specific inflectional affixes. For example, nominal inflection, verbal inflection, and adjectival inflection. Also, derivational affixes forming each category are also exclusive to its own category. All the words each affix attaches have the same lexical category. The syntactic properties are also reliable to differentiate the categories. Each category occupies a specific sentence position. For example, nouns can appear in the subject and object position, and verbs can appear after an auxiliary verb. Adjectives can appear after a determiner and before a noun, such as a tall man, the kind lady. Also, adjectives can appear after a linking verb and modified by very. Examples are, they are very kind, they are very tall, and they are very beautiful. On the other hand, adverbs can occur in several sentence positions. Also, adverbs can modify verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. As we observe, the morphological and syntactic properties are systematic and highly reliable to differentiate the categories. Therefore, they should be used to explicitly teach lexical categories to students. As I discussed earlier, formal classroom learning, which requires sophisticated understanding and reasoning, is suitable for older learners. Also, positive evidence, that is, natural input, is not always sufficient for L2 learners to analyze complex grammatical structure. Therefore, the learners need the negative evidence, that is, error correction, from instruction. Attention and awareness play an important role in L2 acquisition, and explicit instruction raises attention and awareness and enhances learning efficiently in L2 classroom. L2 learners, particularly older ones, might benefit from explicit instruction of grammatical rules and patterns. Also, as I discussed earlier, lexical categories, morphological and syntactic properties are highly reliable to differentiate the categories, and these categories should be used to explicitly teach lexical categories to students. The morphological properties show that each lexical category takes category-specific inflectional and derivational affixes. This is one of the exercises for learning the morphological properties of each lexical category. Students will write the lexical category of each word group. In this exercise, students will write the lexical category each affix forms. The syntactic properties are also reliable to differentiate the categories. Each category occupies a specific sentence position. Let me show you the exercises that help students learn the specific sentence position each lexical category occupies. All the underlined words are noun. Next, verbs. Adjectives. And adverbs. In these exercises, words with multiple categories are used. When students do these exercises, all the questions will be presented in random order. Conclusions and implications. The present study focuses on major English lexical categories, nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, and examine how the categories could be taught to Japanese students effectively. The morphological and syntactic properties of the lexical categories are highly reliable to distinguish the categories. Each lexical category takes category-specific inflectional and derivational affixes. Each category also occupies specific sentence positions. Explicit instruction raises attention and awareness to enhance learning efficiently in L2 classroom. L2 learners will benefit from explicit instruction of grammatical rules and patterns. The morphological and syntactic properties of English lexical categories should be explicitly taught to the students. Their consciousness will be raised by inducing a grammatical generalization, and they will be able to fully understand the lexical categories. These are references. Thank you for listening.